Yeah, it was 11. Okay, I was kind of confused on how to solve 11.
Okay, let me see if mine's the same as yours. Is that the same?
No.
Okay. Could you just sort of tell me a little bit about what your number 11 says?
Yeah, it's z plus 2 divided by z minus 3 minus z minus 5 divided by z plus 5 minus z over or my over sorry minus 2 over z squared plus 2z minus
Hmm.
15.
Okay, it sounds like there are some questions I did not take out of this exam. That sounds like one of them that I actually didn't take out, but you won't be tested on
Oh, okay.
over this part. So
Oh, that was one of the ones I was kind of confused getting SOAP intercept form too. So we may as well. Okay, so I don't have to worry about that one, is what you're saying.
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. That sounds like a rational function, which we'll be getting into in chapter 6. And I sort of tried to streamline the material, but I guess I did not. I guess I failed to take that one out of the review.
Oh no, no worries.
Okay, so something like this, giving you problems?
Yeah. Just getting into slope intercept form.
Yeah. So with the fractions, it's sort of more difficult, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So something like this, if we want to get into slope intercept form, we just have to solve for y. And what we can do, since we have this denominator of 3, and we don't really like denominators, what I can do is I can just go ahead and multiply both sides by 3 to get rid of
Okay.
that 3. So that would be a way to get rid of your fractions, because we don't like really dealing with those.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see how that changes. So we have to distribute through. So I have 3, and then it's minus, and that minus is out of in front of that whole fractions, but the 3's cancel. So I'm going to keep parentheses there just to make sure that I distribute it to both terms. That's
Okay.
sort of a common mistake. So I have 3 minus the quantity 3y plus x is equal to 5 times 3, which is 15. So I can go ahead and distribute that minus in.
Okay.
Let's see, minus 8x equals 15. And I'm going to subtract that 3 over.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
3y minus.
so that would be 15 minus 3, 12. I'm going to add the x term over.
Okay.
So we're just trying to isolate that y. So I'll have 8x plus 12. And then finally, I'll go ahead and divide by that negative 3.
Right. Okay.
So I think that you'll agree that it did help when I went ahead and multiplied through by that 3.
Right. Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. And got
yeah.
yeah. Right. Exactly. Because I mean, I knew how to get it in slope intercept when there wasn't, the divided by 3. Like if it wasn't divided by something.
Yes, yes, very good. So yeah, that step really just clears things out, and then we're down to the part. So since this has a single denominator, we can break that up, and we have y is equal to a slope of negative 8/3
Right.
x minus 4.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right.
Somebody else have a question? I don't want to take up all the time.
Yeah. Anybody else? I think there are people listening, but they don't. Sometimes people benefit from listening, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I had that question too." But you're right. We should definitely ask if
Oh
anybody
yeah,
else
no,
has
yeah. I was
questions.
just making sure I wasn't,
Sure.
taking up all the time or what or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Anybody else have a question? Okay. All right. Yeah, go ahead. You're up then. Again.
Okay. Well, let's see. That when you're doing F and G, I can't find one specific, but I think you'll remember what I'm talking about. When
Yeah.
you're doing F and G, and there's that little circle, and you have to put G in for X or F in for G.
Hmm.
Um, I was just wondering if you could. I don't know if I was getting some of them right, but I was still a little confused on them, and I was wondering if you could do one of those. I don't know if you know.
Certainly.
Or, right, because I'm pretty sure there's a couple on here.
Yeah, I saw that one right off the bat when I was sort of looking through. I'm going to clear this out of here. Okay. I know that it's a two-part question. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's not it.
Oh, and also I saw posted in the Hawks Learning that there was like an extra credit, not an extra credit, but it was like uh review, or where you could get like points back or something.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about the test review, right?
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't the test review.
Okay,
There was like
or
it wasn't corrections.
corrections, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so um, our tests are going to count actually 17.5% each. So what I'm doing is I found in the past that um, students do pretty well on this first test, which is great.
Right.
But a lot of them don't get squared away on what they miss. So um, what I've done is I'm going to give you a grade for the 12.5% of whatever you get on this test. But I'm going to give you a chance within the next 2 weeks of class after I release the grades. So we're talking about after spring break,
Mm-hmm.
um, to write up your test corrections from going into reviewing your assignment and sending them to me. We'd meet through a Zoom meeting for a few minutes. We'd go over those corrections, and as long as you had them corrected right, then you would get an extra 5%. So it's
Oh,
sort of the idea is to get you sort of involved in correcting what you missed.
okay, gotcha. Okay, that's
Yeah,
cool. So,
yeah.
wait, what problems will we correct then? Like, or,
So whatever you miss on the test. So after the testing deadline is over on Friday,
uh-huh.
um, I will go back into the testing center and I will um, get your work and I will assign partial credit. At that point, you'll be able to go back in and from home and check and see what you missed on your test. Um,
Oh, and
yeah,
then,
so then you'll be able to write up test corrections on what you missed and send me a copy electronically, and we can meet and go over those. And
okay.
most likely, if you've corrected everything correctly, you can tell me what you missed and things, then you'll get 100% for that part.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So it's sort of an incentive, like, if you get if you get a 95% and you're like, well, I know what I missed. I'd rather just take a 95% for that portion. Fine, that's okay.
yeah.
But yeah, like I'd say like if you get like an 80% or less, you would want to take advantage of that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
super nice thing.
yeah. Well, I'm hoping that it'll help you guys get more involved, and we can sort of go over what you missed, so you won't make that mistake again, especially like on the final exam when it counts a lot.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Wait, how much is the final worth again? Like
The
60%?
final's worth like 30%.
Oh, 30. I don't know why I thought it
Yeah,
was so high. Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I think I found the problem that one of the problems you were looking at.
Exactly, exactly. That is it.
Okay, well, let's look at this one. So it says find the formula f of g of x and simplify your answer. So when I'm combining functions like this,
Hmm.
I always like to write out what that symbol means. So f of g of x means you can replace it by f of, so parentheses, g of x.
Okay.
So you can always replace it, and f of g of x, it's called a composition. So g of x is sort of the inside function, that's your input, and f
Hmm.
of x is going to be your output, or it's going to
Right.
be the outside function. So when I'm looking at something like this, f of g of x, what I do is I always plug in, I mean, sometimes you're evaluating it at a point. So if
Hmm.
it was like f of g of 1, then I would go to the g function and plug in 1 first.
Right. Okay.
But this one's a formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just plug in that formula. So I'll have f of x cubed minus 4. So I just plug that g function
In for the x and
in
then
for
minus
that.
3.
That's right. So now what this is telling me to do is says go to the f function, and wherever I see an x, I'm going to plug in x cubed minus 4.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yes.
And it's going to give me a formula. So it won't give me an answer, but it'll give me a formula. So it'll give me that function. So I look at my f of x function. I have x, so I plug in that x cubed minus 4. And then I have minus 3. And then in this one, I can sort of simplify things a little bit. So x cubed minus 4 minus 3 would just be an x cubed minus 7. So that should be the answer to
Okay.
that first one.
Okay, gotcha.
Minus 7. Okay. It has to find the domain. And for the domain of a composition, it's a little more complicated than just looking at the function that you have, but not much more. So the domain of a composition will be the domain of what you get out. So it'll be the domain of that function. When I think about x cubed minus 7, there's no denominator.
Right.
So really I look for denominators and I look for square roots at this point in the course, and there's neither of those. So I can
Mhm.
really plug in anything for x and get
Oh, so it'd
something
be
out.
negative infinity to infinity.
That's right. But there is one other thing I have to look at. So I have to look at, for a composition, I have to look at what I plugged in here. So if there's anything in here that's not in the domain, I have to take that out. So if there was like a fraction in
Mhm.
here, I would have to take out those x values. But again, this is just x cubed minus 4, so you're right. There's nothing else I
Right.
need to weed out. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll just put in real numbers or negative infinity to infinity. Either
Okay.
one will work.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Anybody else? Am I the only one on it now?
I don't think so. Let's see. You know, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's okay.
How many kids are in this class? Like what, 20 or something?
Yeah, we have about 20. Yeah.
None of them are on this. Well, let's see. Um,
Did you want to try like a g of f of x?
sure, you may
All
as
right.
well, because these I was a little bit confused on these. So
All right. So for g of f of x, I would do g of f of x. So what would I do first? What would you do first now?
okay, well now I would plug in. Wait, I would plug in. Wait, okay, so we're doing the basically the opposite.
Uh-huh. We're
So
composing
we're
them
plugging
the opposite
in
way.
x cubed minus 4 minus 3. Like you're just plugging in that for f, right?
So now, yep. So now I'm plugging in f of x is my inside function.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
plugging f into g. So this is the
Oh,
goth or g of f.
okay. So it would be x minus 3 minus 4.
Right. So the x minus 3 is going to be the input, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so then I'm going to plug that in for my g function. So what do I get for that?
And then that would be x minus 3 minus 4, right?
Close. X minus 3.
Um, oh, cubed.
Cubed. There you go. Cubed minus 4. And I think that the software will take that without expanding that out. Let's see. X minus 3 raised to the 4. Yeah. Or a third minus 4. Okay. Yeah, so you don't have to expand that whole thing out.
Okay, right.
And then the domain would be the domain of this. Well, this is just that x cubed shifted to the right 3 and down 4. That's, I mean, there's nothing, no denominators, no roots, so we're good there. And then the inside function for this was that line, that linear function,
Right.
x minus 3. So there's nothing to weed out. So again, your domain here is going to be all reals.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Okay.
unless it's under square root or under divided by a number that has denominator, it basically all real number or negative infinity to infinity, right?
That's right. So for now, that's totally right. Later, we'll be talking about like log functions, logarithmic, and those you also have to worry about the domain a little bit. But you're right. For now, in college algebra, those are the only two cases you have to worry about.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Trying to think. Well, I can't believe nobody else is taking advantage of this.
Yeah.
What is with people these days? Let's see if I had anything else I was confused about. Are there going to be a lot of word problems on the exam?
I I don't expect there to be a lot of word problems. I mean, I think when you look back through the sections that we've done,
Mm-hmm.
um, there were some word problems when we just started out in chapter 2.
Right.
So talking about linear functions.
Okay.
Um, and the other section that had quite a few actually word problems were finding the vertex, like maximizing and minimizing things in
Okay.
chapter 4.2a, I think. So I would definitely expect something like that, but I don't remember a lot of other word problems in the software, at least up to this point, except for those. Those were the two main ones that I was recalling.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was like a couple, like Jane, like was going on a vacation or something, or what was the minimum amount of people to go on the
Mm-hmm.
cruise ship or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, I would definitely look for like a maximizing and minimizing one. So that's
Okay.
where you're finding like the vertex of a parabola.
Okay.
And that was section 4.2b. It was 4.2b actually. Um, that or maybe something involving a linear function, like a work problem,
Okay.
or a rate times time is equal to distance way back
Okay.
when we were starting the class. But so far, yeah, there weren't very many word problems. Later on, we'll be talking about more word problems, but for now, there just aren't too many.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Um, well, the last one that I'd written down to ask you about was like 5 squared minus 5y minus 715 divided by 4 equals 0. So if there's like one similar to that on yours, I think
Oh,
it was number 1 on mine. Um,
okay. So was it like writing it as a function, or was it?
it was asking to move the video thing. Solve the quadratic equation by completing the square.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Let's see here. So I think I know what you're talking. I think is that one dealing with a circle or no?
No, it's
No.
just the
Okay.
equation, and they are just saying solved by
All right.
yeah.
Why don't you give me that one again, and we'll just go through yours. I'm gonna clear
Okay,
out
should I
this.
just do
So,
screen on mine or whatever? Like you can see mine.
um, I'm not sure how to see your screen,
Well,
unfortunately.
there's like a share screen button, so I may as well just press
Okay.
it. You
Let's see
cannot
here.
share. Oh, there. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Okay,
Okay.
so the problem was 5y squared
Okay.
minus 5y
Okay. Hold on just a second. 5y squared minus 5y.
minus 715 over 4 equals 0.
Okay. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, um, some of the software problems when we're looking for solving a quadratic equation, they ask you to solve it in a certain way, like using the quadratic formula or completing the square.
Hmm.
Actually, um, I'm glad you asked this question because when you're solving a quadratic, I'm not really concerned about how you solve it as long as you can solve it. So
Right.
completing the square and the quadratic formula, those two methods always work. Factoring works sometimes, but it doesn't always work.
Okay.
So if we're going to complete the square on this one, what we want to do, since it's equal to 0, one thing to do before we go any further is just get rid of that 5 out in front of the y squared. So since it's set equal to 0, what I would do first is just divide both sides by that 5.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, if it's like a circle equation, we could do the same thing by just dividing both sides by that leading coefficient.
Okay.
There's a case with like, it's sort of like the one that's on my screen with a parabola. If I was trying to complete the square to find the vertex, then you have to be a little more careful. You would have to factor out and then add and subtract on the same side. So here we can actually sort of simplify things to start out with.
So everything's being divided by 5 then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So I'm going to create an equivalent expression, but it's going to have that y squared term. We want that y squared to have a 1 out in front of it if we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm dividing 715 by 5, and I get 143. So this is minus 143 divided by 4.
Wait, will we be able to have a calculator on the test?
Yeah, so I would suggest a graphing calculator like a TI. What kind of calculator do you have?
I think of a TI-84.
Yeah, so a TI-84 is perfect.
Okay.
Also, if you want to check one out if at the testing center, if you don't have access,
Okay,
just
yeah.
ask them and you can borrow one of theirs.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I have a perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, since I got that 5 out of there, I'm going to take this constant term and add it over. So this is really the only time where you would sort of not, when you're solving a quadratic, and you would not have things equal to 0.
Okay.
So you bring that constant term over to the other side. So I'm going to add 143 over 4 to both sides. So what I want to do is I want to add the same thing to both sides to complete the square on the left, and I'm going to balance the equation over here. So
Okay.
to complete the square, what I do is I look at that coefficient out in front of the y, that middle term. And what I do is I take that, so it's -1, it's sort of like the b in the ax squared plus bx
Mm-hmm.
plus c. So I take that and I divide it by 2, and then I square it.
Okay.
And I'm going to add that onto both sides. So it looks like I'm going to add a 1/4 onto both sides, and that's going to complete my square.
Gotcha.
So it's always the same thing. You just take that b term, you divide it by 2, and you square it. So what we should have is a y minus the square root of 1/4, which is 1/2, that quantity squared. So it should complete the square over there.
Okay.
And then on the right side, I have plus 143 over 4 plus 1/4. So that'd be 144 over 4.
Right. Okay. Yeah. 4/4, which is, let's see.
So what should always happen is it's the square root of this term, the square root of this term, and then the sign in the middle squared. And then if I add it on, this is 144 over 4.
Okay.
But using calculator, I get that to be 36.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we have y minus 1/2, that whole quantity squared. Let's change that to a minus. And then that's equal to 36.
Right. Okay.
So once I complete the square, what I can do is I can take the square root of both sides. So it's called using the square root method.
Mm-hmm.
So y minus 1/2, if I take the square root over here. Now, when I take the square root of 36, I need to use a plus or minus the square root of 36.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason why I have to do that is because in actuality, when I'm taking the square root of this left-hand side, the square root of a square is actually the absolute value.
I thought
So
it would just get rid of the square.
yeah, so it does just get rid of the square, but technically it would leave you an absolute value. And if you don't want to write absolute value, the way to do it is just to hit a plus and minus over here. So it's just like
right.
solving an absolute value equality. But that's the reason why we have to do the plus or minus.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the last thing I'm going to do is just add that 1/2 over. So I'll have y is equal to 1/2 plus or minus
Square root 36.
square root of 36, which is 6. And so if I have 1/2 plus 6, that would be 6.5 or 13 halves. And if I have 1/2 minus 6, that would be 1/2 minus 12 over 2. So that's minus 11 halves. So those would be my 2 zeros there.
Okay, awesome.
And it would work out the same way if you did the quadratic formula. So you could just plug those in, and you should get the same thing.
Right. Okay. I think that was the last one I wrote down to ask you about.
Okay.
Alrighty. Well,
so are you all done with chapter 4?
Yeah. Let's see. I took the quiz. Yeah, I'm done with chapter 4, and I'm coming in tomorrow for the midterm.
Excellent. Very good.
So
all right.
I'm sorry. When you said come, so you said like leave 2. You said 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. So if you can, sometimes it just sort of depends on the deadline. And if you're coming in on a Tuesday, it shouldn't be too crowded. I mean, knock on wood. Usually, like if you come in on a Friday or a Saturday or a Monday, those are the times that it could be a little bit crowded. But yeah, I would leave. Most students will only take like about 75 to 90 minutes to take the test, but there have been times when students have had to wait in line for almost an hour.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't anticipate that happening. But what time were you thinking about coming in tomorrow?
Probably around 1:30ish.
Oh yeah, so you should be perfect. I mean,
yeah.
Not only should that time not have many students, but I mean, if need be, it doesn't close till 8 o'clock, so you'll be just fine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well that was it.
Okay, and you did you take a chance to sort of like look at the topics that I posted in Canvas, like the
okay.
PDF
Actually,
document?
I was originally so I got into Canvas like one time, but I honestly haven't been able to get in since. So I was actually able to like get all your emails and stuff on my JUCO email, but no, yeah, I haven't been able to like actually get into Canvas since
Oh, that's terrible.
So so I'm putting in my Johnson County Community College email, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then for the password, I honestly don't remember my password. I don't know how to reset it.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Let's see here. So let me clear this out. This is my page. I'm going to log out for a minute.
Okay.
I think there's actually a number you can call or contact. It's the help desk, and they can help you with your password.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So let me see here. Okay, yep. Just so can't log in, need help.
Oh, okay.
And,
so
yeah.
Like, okay, as if I was signing into Gmail, or I mean the email. Like I could just sign out and then do that, and then need help. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then I'll call them. Sweet.
Yeah. So there are a lot of really good stuff in there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty important that you're able to access Canvas, but because I don't like to totally excuse me, spam everybody with a lot of emails. I know that Hawks gives a lot of reminders, but I like to put sort of like a what's happening this week here. So usually like in the announcements, that's where I'll post things. So like for instance here, for this week, I have this, I have all the information about like the testing center, and then at the bottom here I have this PDF that you can open up, and it sort of gives you like topics and formulas that
Okay.
you can.
Will formulas be provided on the test at all, or?
They won't, but the second page are like some of them that you should sort of commit to memory or
Right.
no.
Yeah,
And
I've been trying. I've been getting a little better.
yeah, good.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not that it would help for this test, but for next test, and maybe you do this, when I'm trying to learn something, when I'm doing the homework and I need to use a formula, I always write that formula out, and it seems to help me sort of memorize things. Now, quadratic formula is going to be a good one to know, like the equation of a line,
Right.
and the vertex formula. So one thing you can do, and I encourage my students to do, is it's not cheating if you have all those formulas in your mind, and when they give you a paper and you sit down in the testing center before you log in, you can
Mhm.
actually copy what you have in your head down on that paper, so you'll have it there and you won't have to be remembering like the
Oh,
quadratic
right, and
formula through the whole
digging it in your
test.
head. Exactly. Okay, so yeah, I'll
Yeah,
definitely keep going over those, tonight and tomorrow, and
okay.
I'll do that.
All right, excellent. Very good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Yep, I want to be accessible. So, in the future, I know that work gets a little bit more complicated in chapters 5 and 6. So, if you need to like schedule a Zoom meeting like this with me, I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good night and good luck on your midterm tomorrow.
Thank you so much. All right. See
You're
ya.
welcome. All right,
Bye.
bye.